Thank you all for coming out on such a short notice. My name is Kalila Collins, K-H-A-L-I-L-A-H, Collins, C-O-L-L-I-N-S. I'm a social worker and I'm a project manager for Diverse Options, Voice and Empowerment, DOVE for short. And I am here with those standing around and with me to announce the formation of the People's Consent Decree. Almost 3 years ago, we took to the streets to express our anger, hurt, and grief over not only the murder of Breonna Taylor, but because of our own experiences, situations we witnessed, or other stories we heard of police misconduct. When we took to the streets, so many horrible things were said about us. Our loyalty and love for the city was challenged. We were made to feel like we were crazy, like we were overreacting, that we didn't understand processes, institutions, or systems. Our hurt, anger, and grief was then met with more police misconduct, which should have been a key indicator that we were a key indicator that we were right and there was actually a problem in LMPD. However, at every chance, the city leadership had to listen to the people or to show that they even cared about the people's voices. They didn't. At every chance they had to make this situation right, they didn't. They doubled down. The people were ignored, ridiculed, and abused, but the people were right. After a 2-year investigation, on August 4th, 2022, the Department of Justice charged officers in the murder of Breonna Taylor. The people were right. Then on March 8th of this year, the Department of Justice released its findings into their 2-year investigation into Louisville Metro Government and LMPD. And again, the people were right. The People's Consent Decree is a coalition of individuals, groups, and organizations that are deeply invested in the city of Louisville and who believe that Louisville can be a city where all citizens are able to live up to their full potential without the threat of harm from those sworn to protect and serve. While we do not necessarily believe that reform is the answer here, we are here in this moment, and until we have built what we truly need, we will engage in this process. Why? Because we were let down, ignored, gaslit, and abused by the very people that are now supposed to negotiate a consent decree with the Department of Justice. And we, the people, don't trust it. The People's Consent Decree will be actively engaged in the monitoring this process. This has to be done right. The people have lost faith that LMPD and Louisville Metro government will enter these negotiations with the people in mind. Our coalition believes that in order to show good faith, to try to restore the broken trust, a few things need to be addressed first. To that end, we have demands. I will go through a couple of demands myself, and then I have some of my other comrades come and share some as well. First, there needs to be a public acknowledgement of the wrongdoing and the toxic culture in this department and this leadership. We demand that local Metro government and leadership in Metro Police Department publicly acknowledge that this is not one bad apple or officer gone rogue. Leadership needs to acknowledge that there's a culture problem within the department and the current and former administration. Timeline delineated and told to the community to know what the process is and where we are in the process and what the timeline should look like. And then 3, community members need to be part of every step of this process. We demand that community suggested and approved members will be part of the negotiations. A clear plan needs to be developed to ensure that community members will be involved in every step of the negotiations and monitoring moving forward. Having a few community listening sessions to collect community input is not adequate. The community must sit at the table with DOJ, Metro government, and whoever else will be at that table. Next, I'm going to bring up Celine to do some more demands.
Hi everyone, my name is Celine Mutia Maria. I'm the organizing director for Black Leadership Action Coalition of Kentucky. One of the other demands that the community has is that Louisville Metro government needs to divest from policing. Every year, the LMPD has gotten hundreds of millions of dollars, and they have used that money to oppress us, to abuse us, and that was made clear in the DOJ report, despite the fact that Black people and other community members have been telling elected officials about our experiences, and we were not believed. Instead, the city chose to continue dumping hundreds of millions of dollars while telling other city departments they did not have money to keep critical city programs and services available to city. So if the police continue to get investments of hundreds of millions of dollars, they will be able to do whatever they want. Just this past Derby, I saw a number of police officers riding around in ATVs. Why do they need multiple ATVs? There needs to be an audit of how police are spending their money. There's also information that there's money left on the table, and that money from the city's police budget gets used for other purposes that align with elected officials' priorities. Well, we need to know how all of those hundreds of millions of dollars over the past years have been spent, because they do not need any more money to implement the reforms that are going to come out of this DOJ report. And that needs to be a priority. They cannot get any more money. The other demand is that with the money that we have available to community because of no more investments in LMPD, we'll be able to use that money for critical community needs that have long been underfunded. For example, over the past 3 years, a coalition of community organizations and directly impacted people have been pushing elected officials to develop and implement city programs to support people and stay housed. We don't have enough affordable housing in the city. The shelters are always full. We have to do everything we can to keep people housed. There are ways to mediate housing issues so that both the landlord and the renter can have their needs met and people can stay housed and remain safe. If we were to use just $16 million of the money allocated to LMPD to fund eviction prevention services in the city budget every year, imagine the difference that could make, especially when you think about the fact that houseless people are often directly impacted by police violence. So there are a number of other critical community services that I could name. How about opening some community pools so that young people have things to do in the summer? How about funding shelters and keeping them open so that people have the right to shelter? How about funding rights of counsel so that people have representation when they're going to eviction court? The list goes on and on of the things that the city can invest in that doesn't result in community members continuing to be abused and harmed and oppressed. So the city, we can talk to you, we can work with you all if you're willing to listen to us, but that's the problem, is that you're never willing to listen to us, and you always prioritize the needs of LMPD over community, and it has to end if we're going to see any change in the city.
Yes.
My name is Nancy Cavalcante, Nancy Cavalcante. I'm here today with the 490 Project. I'm a part of this coalition, and so is the 490 Project. One of the demands we want to lift up, Mayor Greenberg, are you listening? Do you hear us? We heard you at the Fraser Museum promise us that you were going to release the names of the officers, the supervisors, and the judges who were so disparagingly pointed out in the DOJ report for their racism and their injustices. Where are the names? We demand that you release those names. The community has the right to know who the violators are. They are the victims of crimes that they have not been punished for. So we are demanding that you release the names that you promised. I'm also here to demand that the Fraternal Order of Police and the Mayor's Office open the negotiation process for their contract. We've been advocating for this for several years now because they go behind closed doors and they put things in the contract that impact us as citizens in a negative way. They address things like the complaint process. They protect the police in that process, not the citizens, not those who have the complaints, and then they investigate themselves. We need change within that contract, and we need eyes on that contract. Other cities have been successful in having community all the time. Well, that can't happen. There's no law that prevents it. They are allowed to let anybody into the room that they choose. They choose not to. So I'm asking today for the Mayor's Office to tell us, where is the will for change? I don't see it. I don't hear it. I don't see the names, and I don't see a change in the process of the contract. Thank you.
How you guys doing? My name's Alfredo Carrasquillo. I'm actually here with Vocal Kentucky. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I appreciate all my allies and community supporters coming out to speak about these issues. I'm here to speak about the subpoena. I'm sorry, let me get this correct. subpoena power that we demand the Civilian Review and Accountability Board have. Why is that important? Ultimately, the definition of power is the ability to act. Without the ability to act, how can we say we have power in anything, right? The goal is to strengthen the relationships between communities and the police that serve them. I think that's the goal that we all seek to achieve. Nobody's here to villainize anybody. We're not here to make anybody look bad. We're only calling out the facts. The facts are that the way policing has been done now is not working. The fact is that low-income communities of color are heavily policed and heavily targeted, and those are the people who are getting filled up in these jails. And the only way that we're gonna really see any real change is if we get the voices of the people directly affected to come to the table. All we want is a seat at the table, right? But along with a seat at the table, we want the ability to not only have you hear what we gotta say, but act on what we gotta say. We don't want the ability to just share our thoughts just for the sake of it. We're people living with the experience who can tell you firsthand how we can improve it. And if this is really a democracy, if these elected officials and police department are really for the community, then this shouldn't be a heavy ask. We want the power, the subpoena power, to be able to not only have our voices heard, but to be able to have our decisions acted. And I want to end this with this. No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
I am State Representative Attica Scott, and I'm here to tell you to drop the charges.
Yeah.
Protest charges need to disappear. All pending charges related to the 2020 uprisings must be dismissed with prejudice, and any adjudicated cases must be reopened and dismissed, or at the least expunged from people's records. If any of the aforementioned were presided over by any of the judges in question, they must be dismissed.
Yes.
I know what it was like to spend months with anxiety because of the Louisville Metro Police Department. When I got here, I did what I did in 2020 and looked around for scopes trained on us. We were harassed, we were profiled, and we were targeted by Louisville Metro government and the Louisville Metro Police Department.
Right.
I served District 41, which was the East End and the West End. My constituents in the East End got to hang out in bars and restaurants when there was a curfew at 9 o'clock.
Right.
We were targeted when we were trying to get to Sanctuary, which the mayor had called for before curfew. There was a militarized police presence waiting to arrest people and then put them up in that jail where they're currently having a barbecue behind it on trumped up charges. I know what it is like as a state representative to have my so-called colleagues retaliate against me with legislation that would have allowed the Attorney General to prosecute us when our charges were dropped. We are the people. We do not consent. We do not consent to this process unless the DOJ and Louisville Metro government meet our demands.
Yes. Woo! Right.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning. Almost afternoon, I guess. My name is Jeremy Byard, JEREMYBYARD. In a quick recap, as we bring this to a conclusion, the problem. It is clear that the Louisville Metro Police Department has systemic issues with excessive use of force, racial profiling, racism, and other forms of misconduct. These issues have been ongoing and for far too long, and have had a devastating impact on our community. The solution? Today, we've presented the People's Consent Decree, a comprehensive plan for real change. We cannot talk about reform. We can no longer form or reform to a corrupt system that was built on white supremacy. Reimagining what policing can look like in our community, and reimagining has to take into account the concerns and the needs of all members of our community, and the input from all members of our community. We believe that this is a historic opportunity to forge real change and create a police department and a community that police department that truly serves and protects all of its citizens. Community involvement. We are calling for everyone in the community to get involved in this process. We need your input. We need your ideas. We need your support to make this happen. Whether you are a resident, a business owner, a community leader, a police officer, we need your input and your ideas, your experiences. Transparency and accountability. One of the key tenets and principles of the People's Consent Decree is transparency and accountability. We believe that the police department must be fully transparent in its practices, policies, and actions, and that it must be held accountable for all of its misconducts and violations of the Constitution and laws that they are here to protect. In conclusion, these are our demands. And we have another demand. We demand a response from Mayor Greenberg. We demand a response in meetings from all public officials on these matters. So we're at the crossroads. We are in a disorientating dilemma. Do we stay with the status quo?
No!
Hell no.
Or do we make change? Are we going to continue to suffer from the same problems and injustices? Or can we seize this opportunity and create real change and build a better future for ourselves and for the generations to come? So you can sign a petition. You can go to Linktree, LOU, the People's Consent Decree. Is that correct? LOU, the people or just people? LOU, People's Consent Decree. And you can sign a petition. You can get information on the consent decree. You can sign up to get invited to our meetings, because it's going to take all of us. Never doubt that a thoughtful group of committed citizens can change the world. For indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. We need you to show up. Thank you.
That concludes our part of the presentation or the press conference. If y'all have any questions for us?
A quick spelling for the second person who spoke. Thank you so much.
Sorry, you have a question?
Yeah. Spell your name.
CELINMUTUYEMARIYA.
And would you say your first and last, please?
Celine.
Thank you so much. An organization that you are with, represent?
Black Leadership Action Coalition of Kentucky.
Thank you so much.
Do you have a full list of all of the organizations that are involved in this coalition?
Yes, and they'll be released in 5 minutes via Dove's social media. And you can go to the link tree and find those organizations as well. There's over 50 organizations, maybe a couple more, and then many members, just individuals.
Has anyone that's gathered here today had any direct correspondence with Mayor Greenberg about these demands, requests?
This is the first time we released them, and that's the next step.
What has in previous weeks?
This is the first time we've let it out.
But along with any kind of conversation, regardless of.
We did, the 490 project did have conversations with representatives from the mayor's office about having community representatives in the negotiation process, to which their response was no.
No to
having representatives. They say that the law prohibits that, but the law does not prohibit that. It allows for it if they choose it, but they would not put it in practice. So
correct me if I'm wrong, you were also present at more than a month ago at the Urban League news conference as well, with with folks that also had recommendations for the mayor's office and metro government. Has anything changed since then, and on what you're asking for, what you want to see done?
Well, this group is different because this is directly related to the DOJ report and the response, which will be the consent decree. 490 has continued to ask for the same demands all along. I don't know, I won't speak for the Urban League if they're making any other demands, but this group is unique now.
Everything is part of this process.
Yes, they're part of this, but this is a unique group now coming together to address the demands for the consent decree.
Very well, thank you.
Will you be going to any of the DOJ community meetings to give these demands?
Yes, all of them. We've already been to the last
Two?
Yeah, last yes.
Oh, I want to add that.
Yes, yes.
So this is actually the only evening meeting in the West End that's public by the DOJ. It's this Monday at 6 o'clock at Greater Friendship Baptist Church in the California neighborhood, 2325 Osage Avenue. The only meeting in the evening in the West End where people like me who don't get off work until 5 o'clock or 6 can show up to, and let's take our lunch hour like I'm doing right now. Thank you.
Sounds like we have another demand.
Right. Also, I failed to mention earlier that we have met with the DOJ directly as a coalition, and we have informed them of our demands as well, and we are urging them to push the city to respond and act on our demands as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any last words? All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's how you do it.
If you do nothing else.
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 Stay live.